Hi guys! Today I made a water dragon from another old Monster High doll, but as almost always it didn't start out like a water dragon. From the moment I got these two spectras, I wanted to do something with her transparent legs. I thought were so beautiful. But till today I didn't have any inspiration. A ghost, something with water or air, but now I had an idea. So I prepped the doll as usual by cutting off her hair, heating up her head so it's easy to remove and to make the glue inside soft. So the hair is more easy to scrape out. But this time there was no glue. And there was something in there I couldn't get out. So I cut open her head and found another neck pack. And I noticed this neck was indeed broken. I made sure the head was empty and I removed her face paint with 100% acetone. It's pink because, well, it's not 100% acetone, but it's pink because of all the paint residue from previous shrinks, but it still works. And then I dunked her head into it. It's a mixture of acetone and 10% water, and she's there for 2 days. And then she looks like this, totally swollen and soft and squishy. But that will change in a few days when she dries. And now she looks like this. I dismembered her body a bit so I can pose her like I want, sanding the rough edges, all the factory seams and prints. I filed the seams on her legs with a nail buffer. I hoped I could get them shiny again, but I had to get rid of those seams anyway, so we will see. And then, a few weeks later, because I did a project in between, the Big Boat Bash hosted by Bill Making Stuff. You should definitely check those videos out. And now I forgot what I was supposed to make. Oh, could not remember if I tried. She was as hard as a rock by now, and I could not get the neck back out of there. But I didn't worry. I was sure I could make it work. Her face was a bit small now. I think it's because of the neck bag closed up the air so the head could not form normally. So I started with a base. I made from package foam, or whatever it's called. I broke some pieces off with no idea how it would turn out and wanted that to cover with air drying clay. So when I broke some pieces off, I let the randomness of it decide how it was gonna look. And I tried some variations of it and chose something that looked like a bit of ground with a fallen tree on it or something. And I wanted a tiny bit of space for a bit of water in there. And I decided right away that the water was going to be in the front of it. Well, that's impressive of me, isn't it? Yeah, I'm learning and learning here. I wanted my girly dragon to come out of the water with watery legs and slowly turning into a dragon as soon as she dries up. A bit like the Little Mermaid fairy tale. So I made an old tree stump where she would have something to hold on to when she's crawling out of the water and could be fully transformed on the water side. I made a few trees already in the past year and today I used a new method, covering the package foam with air drying clay and making the indentations the same as previous times. So, not totally new, just another base. I used my dust box to sand some more on her body. I put some insulation foam in the holes. Those edges were a bit painful. As always, I'm constantly trying the pose, making sure how to glue everything. And my hot glue is hot for so long time. That can be a positive thing sometimes, but mostly it's not. It takes a lot of time to set everything in the right way, and patience is required here. Everyone who's seen my videos know by now I use baking soda and white glue mixture to smooth her body and joints. After a day it is fully dry and firm and ready to sand and paint or to get a second layer of clay on it. It's so smooth to work with. I compare it with very firm mashed potatoes. The only thing you have to take in consideration is the amount of water you need for which purpose you need it for. And that took some time figuring out, and still I find this the most tricky thing about working with this material. I sanded everything, even if it needed more layers. I wanted this girl to be as neat and clean as I could, and that meant a lot of sanding. And the baking soda gives a lot of dust. I gave my girl some scales, but her frontal wanted another texture, so I gave her some line indentations with my Dremel. I wanted them more round in the beginning, but apparently I draw them more pointy. Don't know why. Yeah, it reminded me of the Medusa from Capmillion Studio. And I'm so trying not to use much of her ideas, but well. Time for a tail. I did a big no-no and I bought something from Temu. Sometimes I do that in spite of my principles. Just so much cheaper than in my country some of the stuff I need. And I saw this little dragon I was sure I could use sometime. It's just a 3D print, as you can see. And I guess now is the time. I'm not as good as Doll Afterlife. She can sculpt like hell, but I cannot. So I will use this little dragon for my girl's tail and back spikes. Sanding it was really not easy, so I didn't. I was sure I could cover all irregularities with paint or baking soda. So I was trying how I would use every bit of this, and I glued it on her with hot glue. Then I smoothed all the rough transitions with my BS mixture. Yeah, this was tedious, but so worth it. For the tail itself, I used some polymer clay. I glued the tail on for some more stability and also for some more volume. After it baked, it broke, but it was an easy glue with some clay glue. But nevertheless, this was also a lot of fiddling and trying and doing it all over again. But in the end, I think I got a very nice tail. I was constantly trying to get the tail in such a way her feet and her tail were coming out of the water. But with the tail I will fail. Spoiler. So this is the tail totally glued on. I used super glue and baking soda for this. And to smooth this also I used some more BS mixture. and some cleaning up in between. And some more sanding. And it was time to start with her head. I already had one horn on there just to try something, but I liked. So I made some more with my BS mixture. I also extended her ears the same way, like her ears also ended up like a horn. Oops, don't know what happened there. It was like half an hour of footage like it. So let's move on with her arms and hands. Claws. These two spectres also came without arms and hands. So I had to make them myself. For my gargoyle I already made some claws, but I thought they were very big. And for this dragon I hoped I could make them somewhat more elegant. And I thought I could do that with polymer clay. I had to make them separate from the body because the clay had to bake and the doll can't. I got some wire, I wrapped with tinier wire, rolled out the clay and wrapped the arms with it. She's going to have 4 fingers, just to make my sculpting a bit easier, I hope. And I made indentations for her nails. I made them separate so I could glue them on later. Meanwhile, I gave my dragon lady a coat of grey primer, just to see if everything was smooth and nice. Her legs I protected with some foil. There were some spots, not totally so, have to fix that. And some spots the coat was too thick, have to address that too. And I sanded some bits. I didn't like all the tail bits. They needed some more spikes than there were on there. Maybe I could use some of the nails I made. Oh wait, I always make some extra spikes when I have silicone mixture left over. Maybe I could use them. A silicone and cornstarch mixture made these and they stay flexible. Time to finish her arms. They were baked and I glued them on with super glue and baking soda. And let's glue the spikes on as well. But I hadn't enough also to fill her head, so I made some more. But if you paid attention, you see I made this batch with silicone and baking soda. I wasn't paying attention. I only noticed it when they were dry and I wanted to use them. Oh, Pip was passing by, overseeing everything, of course. What was I saying? Oh yeah, these spikes weren't flexible at all. They were breaking and crumbling. So it took me a second to understand what I did wrong. Yeah, it should have been cornstarch instead of baking soda. So I made another batch and had to wait till these were dry to finish her head. I eyeball the proportions. If the dough is still sticky, you put a bit more cornstarch in there. And yeah, these feel much better. Meanwhile, I could sand some more. Yay! And I gave her a second base coat. This time I put some masking fluid on her legs, and that works a bit more precise than a piece of foil. I needed the transition from transparent legs and dragon skin a bit more controlled than that. It's like ripping off a pantyhose. The spikes were dry and I glued them on her head and smoothed everything with my BS mixture. After drying, it all got sanded again. And it was time for some accessories. These were made from EVA foam, gesso and acrylic paint. The flower and all the other leaves and plants I made from polymer clay. I put a glass shelf from our refrigerator under there so I could work on a smooth surface. The shelf was left over. I kept it for this purpose. The tree needed acrylic paint. The first flower I made petal for petal, baked them and glued them together. But this way it got way too big. And I didn't like it at all. So my second try I made the flower as a whole and then baked it. Still a bit big, but I liked it much better. And I glued on all the stems. I glued the tree on the base. Time to give my girl some color. The red thingies I made her gills. When I made them, I didn't know they were going to be gills, but now I think they were meant to be. She's a water dragon and needs to get oxygen when she's down there. It's brilliant. Oh, I'm so clever. I often use a makeup sponge to get the paint more smooth without brush strokes. The first layer I used dark blue. I wanted all the indentations to be shimmering and glittering, and I tried this with shimmery powder. I'm not sure if it's mica powder or I think it's something else, but I don't know. But with the brush it wasn't working very well, so I used my finger. And so my nails were from now on filthy. Oh, and the next layers were a bit lighter blue. The base I did some experimenting on. I painted it with acrylic and then a coat of crackled glaze, just to see what I could do with it. And I had to think about the water and how resin would react with the EVA foam I was going to put under there. On bare foam it wasn't working, but on acrylic paint it did something weird, and I think beautiful. Because of the heat, there was a reaction on the paint. In the paint? Could I get this effect also with other colors? So I experimented some more. With Inktense pencils from Derwent, I painted some more scales on my girl's body. When the pigments from the Inktense are activated with water, they dry up permanent and also bright. Other than that, they behave like watercolor pencils. Her face I did off camera, and her eyes got a dot of white light, of course. I glued the UVA foam on the base with hot glue. And of course, just not enough glue in there for one go. The edge of the foam I put some tape on as a border for the UV resin. In a perfect world, I would use pouring resin for this and have to make a better frame for it, but I have to do with UV resin. Maybe in this case it's for the best. I only should have put the tape on there after I painted the bottom. But that's just hindsight. When the paint was dry, I put my girl in her place and started pouring the resin bit by bit, curing it. And I forgot a major thing here. I put some glossy varnish over her whole body. She was way too dull. But that was not the most important part I forgot. There was another thing I forgot completely until it was too late. I wanted my dragon in the water, but all the water plants also needed to be in there before the resin was cured. And I just noticed it at the end. So I just blithely continued filling the lake. When everything was hard, I removed the tape and sanded down all the imperfections. After that, everything got a thin layer of resin to make it shiny again. And I had to touch up some paint. My dragon's eyes also got a few drops of resin for some shine. All my plants got a layer of glossy varnish. And then I noticed it. And I wasn't going to drill all the holes in the resin. So I cut all the plants short and glued them on the water surface with some UV resin. Finally, some reindeer moss here and there, and I called my diorama finished. My sister found she was very blue, and in her translation it means, I think, not so pretty. Maybe she's a bit too dark. I always underestimate acrylic paint. It always comes out so much darker than I remember. But other than that, I'm very happy with my diorama. Maybe my prettiest so far. The pictures don't do her justice. And you know what's coming. I really love to read all your thoughts about today's project. Please leave them below. And if you like this video, please give it a like. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button with the notification bell. Maybe my channel will grow a bit more. And I hope to see you next time.